Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm not saying welcome back because this is one of my first videos. If you've seen my shorts, this is going to be a lot different from the shorts that I've been posting. I think they're called shorts, or are they called reels? No, I think reels is Instagram. The small TikTok-like videos. It's going to be a lot different from that. So I am going to be painting a black cat portrait, and I'm going to be taking you along with me. That way you can learn how to paint black fur in general. If you're trying to paint a black cat, then wow, this is perfect for you. Now, I am relatively new to pet portrait painting, but I am very confident in my skills, and I believe that I can do this fairly easy. I will say that if you're looking for a more realistic way of going about it, this isn't realism, I would say. It definitely kind of like a stylized realism, maybe. I don't know. You saw the thumbnail. You know what it looks like. I don't know what it looks like yet, but you know what it looks like. Now, I got this commission back in May. Well, actually, no. I got this commission later on, but because of a portrait I did in May. There was an event called Artists in Wonderland, and I painted a portrait for 𝚃𝙸𝙼𝙼𝙿, and it was a portrait of his Labrador, which I will show here. Now, the Labrador is black, so I learned how to add different colors. That way it wouldn't be so dull, because you shouldn't be adding, you know, just like a black to white tone. You should be adding different colors to give more richness and more vibrance, and not to mention it's just nicer to look at. So we're gonna go ahead and start the digital process now. Okay, and now we are back. Now, you are not going you're not going to be able to see this very well. It's kind of bright out here, but there's a lot of detail. You can see that, right? Yeah, you can see that. You're fine. Okay, anyway. So I like to work off of a digital file, and I know that this is not something that everyone can do, because if you don't really have a reason to have an iPad, then why would you? But I like to work in Procreate, and I like to go layer by layer on there, which is pretty standard. But I do this that way I can kind of see what my process was without having to check the time lapse. Oh my god, it took me way too long to remember that. Okay, it took me, like, I don't want to have to keep checking the time lapse. Sorry that took me so long. So essentially I will go back, and as I'm painting, I'll go with the base, and then I will hit one layer to show where I worked up, and then it'll just be a build-up of going from dark to light. Now, when I'm working on these paintings, I always do background and accessories first. That way I can just paint around it, and I don't have to worry about the fur getting on everything, because it's fur. It's going to get everywhere. But I can have the fur lay over all of those details, and it's way easier than having to do the entire cat and then having to meticulously go around the cat and then, you know, meticulously go around the collar. Like, it's just, or sorry, meticulously put the collar in, but yeah, you understand what I mean. Not to mention there's going to be a lot of paint mixing, and I cannot get the same tone twice, so I'm going to be doing a lot of, like, day-long stretches. So let's get into it. So at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I got this commission because of a painting I did back in May, and I really wanted to talk about that. So naturally, I've been watching the art YouTubers for quite a long time. I can think back to when I was watching 𝚃𝙸𝙼𝙺 in my junior English class during downtime, thinking about how cool it would be to be able to do murals. And then that led me to find 𝚃𝙀𝙼𝙼, and I remember watching his channel back when he was still around the 100,000 mark. When they announced that they were going to do the Artist in Wonderland mashup, and then also that they were going to do a meet and greet, I decided immediately that I was going to go no matter what. And I actually had a few things going on that day, and I made it my absolute mission to still go. I think I ended up being awake for 21 hours that day because I was so determined, and I still had a few responsibilities with my family that I had to attend to. My mentality behind giving 𝚃𝙀𝙼𝙼 something for this event mainly stemmed from the fact that it was especially his videos that helped me get through a really rough time. At one point, I was working at a job that required me to use my art skills. In fact, it was actually the main part of the job. However, the environment was incredibly toxic, and my mentor was incredibly inappropriate with how he talked to me and how he talked about me. I left because I knew that the place that I was working at was going to tear me apart. It also didn't help that the people that I had surrounded myself with, which were friends that I had had for years at that point, had also torn me down a bit as well. I decided to put some space between me and everyone that I hung out with, and for about 1.5 years, the only person I talked to was my spouse. For that entire time, I also stopped painting and just generally creating. Actually, the entire reason that I even got back into art was because I decided one day to watch 𝚃𝙀𝙼𝙼's video, and I remember it being the puffin mural, and it inspired me so much that I slowly decided to start sketching in my sketchbook, which led me to doing more digital art. And funny enough, that led me to Twitch, and Twitch led me to streaming, and streaming led me to emote art, and I started making emote commissions, and I started doing Twitch banners, and I decided to dabble in PNG streaming, and it just opened so many different doors for me. After my bad experience with my job, I felt absolutely miserable, like my life had been derailed because that was the only industry that I had wanted to work in, and it had left such a sour taste in my mouth that I didn't want anything to do with it anymore, and that just made me feel so lost. But then when I got back into creating and drawing more than I ever had in my life, it put me in a mental state where I actually felt myself healing. And I don't mean to get overly emotional and touchy here, but that in itself just made me so appreciative for these artists, and especially 𝚃𝙀𝙼𝙼 himself, which is why I created that painting of George, because if nothing else, I just wanted to show my appreciation. But also this background you're seeing me do, yeah, it's getting scrapped, and I'm about to talk about it right now. Okay, so to cut a long story short, sometimes you need to do the wrong thing in order to learn. So, this does not look how it should look. There is a lot of like lightning looking things, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and I'm supposed to have a more like realistic look to this. It's supposed to be a lot fluffier, and it does not look fluffy right now. It looks like that. So sometimes you have to bite the bullet, and you have to start from scratch. So come with me while I destroy all the work that I did yesterday. There's about 3 hours of work in this. Hit myself. 3 hours of work. So yeah, so that was pretty painful having to redo, and I know that I'm making very light of it, but I have to tell you, I had that painting up on my wall. All the paintings that I do, I put them up on my wall and I stare at them. I stare at them to see, you know, if this is something that could aesthetically work on a wall, and that background was bugging me so much that I actually couldn't sleep. And that's when I knew I was going to have to just redo the entire thing. Okay, so you've seen me going through this and redoing this side, and I've decided that I do like what's going on over here a lot more than what is going on over here, so I am going to go ahead and continue doing this, and it's going to be sped up because I think I'm going to do a time lapse, so yeah, that's what is the game plan. So I know officially that this video is a black animal portrait tutorial, but there was so much that I did for this painting and I really just didn't want to leave any of it out, so that's why you're seeing all of this before the actual cat gets introduced. And I'm just kind of taking the chance to just chat right now because after the cat gets introduced I'll try to explain more what I was doing during that whole time. You know, I also have to say, this has been such a learning experience for me because I had a few videos on my channel a while back, but I did take them down because I just wasn't really happy with how they came out. And they were all digital tutorials, well, they weren't tutorials, I'm sorry. They were all just digital art speed paints. And this time around, while I was painting, I decided to do a lot of them in normal speed, and boy, do I wish I did not do that. I think from now on I'm going to be working in time lapses, because time lapses just make everything so much easier. We just got done. Okay, so we're done with the background. I am holding this funny because I decided to go ahead and use whatever paint I had left from doing the background to essentially, you know, paint the sides so that they're not white anymore. The cat, however, is going to stay like that because I am using a dark blue base for the cat after I actually start. So just as a rundown for what's going to happen, I am going to go ahead and start on the collar and start on the charm for the collar before I do anything else, because the glasses are going to be done last. And probably the nose is going to be done last. But collar, charm, and the ears are going to be done first, because it doesn't matter if the fur goes over those, because that'll look most natural. But if I tried to do anything else, I would be in a lot of pain trying to not go over anything. So that's the game plan. Boy, oh boy, do I love to repeat myself. I know everything I said in that clip I technically said at the beginning of this video, but hey, if you forgot, well, there was your reminder. I do have to say that I was having a bit of a hard time with the collar as far as the coloring goes, because I was trying to have the darker sections in the back with the lighter sections in the front while still adding a bit of texture, and I think I ended up going over it a few times. Also, I have to say, if I end up getting to a point where I am no longer getting animal portrait commissions, I am moving to painting food. You'll see here in a little bit, but boy oh boy did I actually really enjoy painting this burger. It was really fun for no reason. I think it was because I had so many different colors, and at this point I had only been doing blue on this canvas. I remember after I was done, I was like, oh my god, I can finally put the blue away. Because the cat is also blue. I know that the cat is black, but when you are painting a black animal, a lot of the times you'll end up in the blue category as far as, you know, shading and lightening it. So
I was so happy to do something that wasn't blue for a little bit. Also, I don't think I mentioned it yet so far, but this cat's name is Burger. That's why I am painting a burger as a little charm on its collar. And this was a 2-part commission. This is the first part. The second part of it is a little tabby cat, and her name is Pizza. So I got to paint a little tiny pizza and a little tiny burger. And I have to tell you, that was an absolute blast. And everyone I told about this painting, because I have a lot of cat fanatics around me. I myself have 2 cats, and I actually have tabby cats. And I was telling people about these cats' names, and they were like, that is amazing. It's not very often that you see people that go really out there with the cat names. I only ever hear about it on the internet. Everyone around me have pretty tame names. Like, my cat's names are Nebula and Nova. So, I mean, you know. Also, while I am working on this burger, when it gets to the part of the bun, I was really happy with how the bun itself came out, but I was having issues with the sesame seeds. They didn't look right when I first put them on. So I begrudgingly decided to go ahead and redo them, and I had to remix some paint and go over it, and I ran into the issue of it wasn't really covering the lighter spots underneath from the old sesame seeds. But that actually ended up working out in my favor, because I decided that the kind of faded look underneath it with the lighter look on top kind of helped add to the illusion. And I think it ended up looking pretty good. So that was kind of a win, an unintentional win.
Okay, so the ears, the collar, and the charm are all done now, and we are going to move on to the chest. The chest is going to be way easier to get out of the way before anything else, so that's why we're going to do that first. And I'm most likely going to render it completely, just so that it's kind of an example of what the rest of the cat is going to look like. And also that way I don't have to keep bouncing around, because I am going to have to do a bit of blending, and acrylic paint tends to dry pretty fast. So I am going to be painting the base with a mid darker tone. I'm not going straight in with black. I know a lot of people, when they make black cats and black dogs and, you know, other black animals, they'll go ahead and kind of like silhouette it out and then go ahead and shade on that, as, you know, build up the shades as they go brighter. I'm going to start with a mid color, that way I can still shade with black, and then I can still highlight with the brighter colors as well. So you'll see what that looks like, but I just kind of want to explain what I'm going to be doing first, because I'm kind of worried that my camera's not going to pick up the different colors, if I'm being honest. So yeah.
So by the way, painting this cat has been trial and error, and you're about to see again why this was another error.
Okay, so essentially I ran into an issue that needs to be resolved. The color that I used that was supposed to be a mid-tone looked very mid-tone while it was wet, but as it started to dry, it dried very close to black. So when I tried to go over it with black, it wasn't showing up really. So I'm gonna have to go over, lighten the body, and then hopefully get it to a color where black will actually show up on it. So
I have to tell you, these darker colors, when they're such, you know, deeper shades like this, I was having kind of a hard time seeing it myself, let alone my camera trying to pick it up. So what I was doing was I had my hairdryer, like my everyday hairdryer, because I don't really have a strap hairdryer hanging around, and I was going through and I was painting on the chest, and then I would go ahead and blow dry it, make sure it was drying a different shade, and then I'd paint over it again, dry it, make sure the shades were still different, and thankfully it led me to the point where black was actually showing up differently from the mid-tone that I had been using. But boy, oh boy, did I mix the most massive amount of this dark blue, because I had no idea if it was going to be light enough, so I just had to keep adding more blue, a little bit more gray, and then I'd paint on there, see if it would dry close to black or if it would dry like a mid-tone, and then I have to add more light colors. Like, it was an absolute process. I promise you the sped up version is definitely doing you a service, because it was an absolute process, and at one point, like, I was holding my palette up to the light to make sure that these colors were not tricking my eyes, but the issue is, since it's acrylic paint, it dries differently from how it looks when it's wet, and that alone was causing so many different issues, and I just felt like I was doing rocket science at one point.
okay, so it's been a minute since I last worked on this. I worked on it last week, and I had a very long weekend. So we are going to work on it again today. Today I'm going to be focusing on the fur on the face, and hopefully I can get the glasses and the nose done today as well, because those are going to be the last things that I do. But if I can't get them done today, then they'll be done by tomorrow. So this kitty is going to be done very soon.
Okay, so I said this was going to be a tutorial, so I'm going to try to explain a bit what I'm doing here. I went in with the dark-ish mid-tone, and I'm avoiding the muzzle and the nose because I knew if I blocked that in, I was going to lose that shape, and I didn't want to try to freehand it when I had already mapped it out. But after that had dried, I decided to go in with the black. I shaded with just straight black, I will completely admit that. And that helped lay out all of the deepest areas and all of the areas where the cat's fur was mostly folding over, or like around the edges essentially. And then after I was done with that, I went in with a lighter mid-tone and started to build up the highlights. Also, I don't know if anyone here needs it to be said, but I'm only adding highlights on the areas where there's more angular features on the cat, meaning the nose, above the eyebrows, and I added highlights on top of the head if I remember correctly. So the biggest thing that I was trying to avoid when I was painting was confetti fur, and I don't know if anyone here has heard that term before, but essentially it's when you have a bunch of fur that is just kind of sticks or just general strokes of paint, and even though yes it is on an animal and yes it is intended to be fur, there's not really any dimension to it, and you're running into issues where it looks very flat. and that was something that I wanted to avoid at all costs, which was why I was trying to be extremely mindful of leaving the shadows at their darkest point. So when I'm going in here, I'm being very careful to keep the highlights dark. I know it's still a highlight, but since it is a black animal, I'm trying to keep these highlights pretty relative to what I'm doing. And as I am lightening up the color that I'm using, I'm moving more towards the blue family than I am towards the gray family. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this to still look rich with color, but I don't want it to look too rich. That's another thing you have to be careful of. I'm only adding the highlights to the more high ridge areas as well, the part of the cat that definitely pops out when you look at them in the light. You don't want to add light all over their face because then nothing is going to stand out properly. It's like when you over highlight a book in school. You don't want to do that because then everything looks important when you should only be highlighting the most important parts. So essentially, when I mentioned earlier that I was super excited to work on that burger, I was not kidding when I said almost this entire painting is nothing but blue. It is blue, black, a bit of white, and then the only escape I had from the blue was working on the ears and working on the charm, because even the glasses, when I'm working on the frames themselves, they still had blue in the mixture. So I didn't want to stray away too far and make the rims look like they didn't belong, which I believe I made them look like they belong pretty well. It's just the fact that they were all so blue. So while I'm working on the nose here, I just wanted to pop in and also say that I did a lot of highlights around the nose. I think the nose is where I went the most highlight heavy because the nose is shiny and it's supposed to be wet. So I wanted to make sure that it gave that illusion, and also I was trying to make sure that it stood out a bit from the muzzle itself because it's a black nose and it's a black cat. You know, I didn't want it to get lost in there. Also, another thing that I had go on during all of this was the situation with having to transfer the painting, or well, the drawing I should say, having to transfer the sketch from my Procreate to my actual canvas. I had to draw it out on the canvas, which was fine and great, but definitely my proportions were off a little bit because, you know, I'm only human. So then I decided later on, not with this painting, I did it with a few of my more recent commissions, that I'm doing doodle grids now, and it's so funny how well those work. They work so well, and I know not many people do them on smaller scales like that because, you know, if you don't have to, why would you? But honestly, it really helped. Also, right now what you're seeing is just me going over each detail because I had all of those colors still on my palette at the time. So I was just trying to make sure everything was looking pretty alright before I started in on the glasses. And what you're seeing now is me trying to graph out. I was trying to graph out the stripes because when I did them on my iPad, the stripes didn't really look like they were lining up properly, and it's probably just me, but they still look like they don't line up to me even though I double checked them and they were good. I think it's just having two stripes like that and having them cut off, it just is never going to look proper to me. So let's talk about another first from this portrait. So I have never done glasses, like metal rims, to the degree that I did on this one. Even though the Labradoodle portrait that I did for 𝚃𝙸𝙼𝙿 had the shiny rims on them, it was not to the degree of this. I wanted to try to outdo myself from the last time that I had done a portrait, and also when I did 𝚃𝙸𝙼𝙿's portrait, I have to tell you that was a spur of the decision, like last moment decision, because I was thinking to myself back and forth. I was like, nah, he wouldn't want something like that, but honestly it would just be really fulfilling to have something like that, but no, I don't need to do something like that. And then I think 2 days before I was due to go up to Michigan, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm doing it. So then I spent 14 hours between those 2 days solely working on that painting. And I have to tell you, when it came to the glasses rims, I don't think I actually put as much attention onto it as I should have. So when I was doing these, I was like, I have the time, I have the ability, I have the tools. So I really was trying to make sure that those suckers were shiny. So I promise I will quit yapping in your ear. This is my last time cutting in, but I just really quick wanted to come in and talk about the butterfly effect, because this is absolutely insane. I randomly decided to paint my favorite YouTuber's dog for him, and then I went to this event, and then next thing you know, I am booked up for the rest of the year with pet portrait commissions. That is just absolutely insane to talk about and to be able to say that. I've never had consistent commissions like this before, and now I am making a YouTube video documenting my process on this, because I myself was having a really hard time finding tutorials for it back when I was trying to learn how to paint black fur. Also, I did want to mention that there are really good tutorials for black fur, but a lot of them are all very realistic or hyper-realism. And you can definitely translate those skills over to your own style, but I wanted to show a more stylized rendition of that, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. But the butterfly effect has been hitting my life like hardcore recently, so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I wanted to say thank you to my commissioners. I don't know if they'll ever see this, but thank you so much for trusting me to paint your kitties for you. I hope you loved them, and honestly, this was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed painting these cats. I know I'm hitting a bunch of road bumps and I'm complaining about the blues and everything, but honestly, I would have had it no other way. This was such a journey, and each commission that I've done since then has also been a journey, and I've loved every part of it. I'm overstimulated. Okay, so I wanted to pop back in. It is October. This video has taken me over 2 months to post, but I just wanted to come in and say that the paintings did make it to their destination, and I was told that everyone loved the paintings, and I actually got a few commissions out of it, so I think that was a total win. I will be posting the process of the other cats here before too long. I just need to get through all the files first, but I do want to apologize just really quick if you had a hard time seeing during a certain part of the video. I do know that with the black and the dark blue being picked up, there was a little bit where the only reason that you could see what I was doing was because of the shine from my ceiling fan. So I'm sorry about that. But with that being said, I will quit taking up your time. Let's check out the final result. I know I keep popping in, I'm sorry. I just wanted to finish off this video with saying thank you so much for still being here if you are still here. If you want to check out my other socials, I do have a few and I will link them down below. I also have a store link down below if you want to check that out as well. Thank you for being here. Again, I really do appreciate it. I am very new to the whole YouTube situation, and I know this is a lot different from my shorts as well. If you want to possibly like or subscribe, that would be cool too. No pressure, just saying that would be kind of cool. Let me know what you want to see in the other videos as well, because I do plan on posting more regularly. I don't know why I'm moving my hands so much. I do plan on posting more regularly, and there are a few things that I myself want to learn, and I know a few people type into the Google search engine and there's not that many results. So if there's something that you've been trying to figure out, let me know. I would like to learn as well. So with that being said, thank you for being here, and hopefully I see you in the next. Bye bye.